Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us here today. And I'd like to take the opportunity to also express my appreciation for the mayors and local officials who joined us here this morning for what has proven to be a very important conversation. And, you know, we have seen over the past number of years that the gun lobby in this country has strongly advocated for American-style gun culture in Canada. And I would simply remind all Canadians that although in the United States it is a right to bear arms, and they primarily do that for self-protection, that's not the law in Canada. In Canada, firearm ownership is a privilege. And it's a privilege earned by those who obey our laws, who are conscientious and responsible in how they acquire, use, store their firearms. We know that there are some firearms that, quite frankly, are very dangerous for the public, and others that pose very little risk. And so there's absolutely nothing in our platform that is intended in any way to impede or restrict the activities of hunters and farmers who every day go out and engage in that activity, and they do it responsibly, and they do it safely. However, there are some weapons that pose a very significant risk to public safety. We have found in my discussions across the country an overwhelming consensus. There are certain weapons, military-designed assault weapons, that have no place in our country. They have no place in a civil society. They are designed for soldiers to kill enemy combatants. And in the hands of a person intent on violence against their fellow citizens, the worshippers in a mosque, children in an elementary school, people of a religious minority, or people they simply hate, that weapon can result in enormous tragedy. And so we very strongly believe that there is no place for such weapons, and these military assault-style rifles will in fact be banned in Canada, prohibited. And for those who legally purchase them, we will remove them from society and compensate them by paying them fair market value. We also know that there are over 1 million handguns legally owned in this country. And as I've traveled across the country and met with many of those handgun owners, I have found the vast majority of them are law-abiding, responsible, and conscientious in their ownership. They buy their weapons legally, they use them responsibly, and they store them securely. But tragically, it is also a source of weapons. We know that weapons, handguns in particular, that get into the hands of criminals come from 3 sources. Some of them are obviously smuggled across our border from the United States, which is, of course, the largest handgun arsenal in the world. And so we've been working hard over the past several years to restore the capacity of our Customs Border Security officials and the RCMP, the border security officials, to make sure that those guns are detected and stopped, and that the individuals responsible for smuggling them into this country are held accountable. We also have made significant investments in restoring the capacity of the RCMP and local law enforcement officials to conduct the investigations that result in the identification of the organized criminal gangs who smuggle these guns into our country for profit, completely reckless as to the tragedy and the fear that they create in our communities. But as we've continued to work at the border, we also know that some of those guns get into the hands of criminals because they are stolen from law-abiding gun owners, and also some of those guns are purchased legally and then sold illegally for enormous profit. And that's why we've brought forward significant new measures to, first of all, prevent the thefts by ensuring that every handgun should be stored in a safe or a vault. You know, the gun that was used on the tragedy in the Danforth and in many other shootings has come from as a result of being stolen, either from a store or a range or an individual firearm owner. If those guns had been stored in a safe or a vault, they would have been far more likely to steal and far less likely to end up on our streets. And for individuals who purchase and these guns legally and then sell them illegally, it's necessary to ensure that the police have access to the resources and the information they need to successfully investigate, prosecute, and hold those individuals accountable. I'll tell you there are very significant consequences for those who are caught, and we have to make sure that they get caught. And finally, we also know that for people who have a license to own and possess a firearm, sometimes their circumstances can change. And for example, if they are involved in a very serious domestic violence situation, or a neighbor dispute, or any situation where violence is a very likely outcome, or if they are suffering from suicidal tendencies and pose a significant risk to themselves or to others, or perhaps if they're online advocating hate and advocating violence against a religious minority, women, or any other group. Those are red flags. And so we want to make sure that the police, the community, victims, doctors, teachers, all of us have the ability to render that situation safe, to raise the red flag, to identify that potential danger, and to take immediate steps to render that situation safe by removing firearms from that dangerous situation and suspending that individual's ability to acquire more firearms. This is really all about a choice, and Canadians have a significant choice to make. We can choose to weaken our gun laws and become more and more like the American gun culture, and we see its consequences, or we can strengthen our laws. We can make investments in our communities and our kids that will really make a difference in how we can keep our communities safe, and we can take the steps necessary to make it far more difficult for criminals to get guns. We also had an important conversation with mayors today about the investments we need to make in communities. Mayors and local police chiefs and local officials right across this country are the ones working on the ground. And so we have made an announcement in our platform as well to provide up to $250 million directly to those municipalities so that they can work with their community groups and organizations to change the circumstances that give rise to violence and gang activity in our communities, to help those kids make better choices, and to address the social circumstances that create violence. And so that's an important partnership, and we're very, very pleased, and we've learned a great deal in our discussions with the mayor today. I'd now like, if I may, to turn the podium over to our Prime Minister. Prime Minister.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Bill, for your words and particularly for your leadership over many decades of keeping people safe, your contributions to this discussion, your contributions to our capacity as a government to strengthen gun laws when Conservatives want to weaken them is much appreciated by everyone. It's great to be here in Richmond Hill with Majid Jahari as well. I'd also like to thank Mayor Barrow for the warm welcome, as well as all the local mayors and representatives who came out this morning for what was a really important discussion. As we all know too well, gun crime is going up. I've spoken with municipal leaders over the years on how the federal government can help. When we were in government, we brought in common sense gun legislation that included enhanced background checks and stronger restrictions around transporting a firearm. And today, further reinforced that we need to do even more, as we heard firsthand how the rise in gun violence is rocking our cities. Here's the reality. We've seen far too much gun violence in our streets in recent years. There have been too many lives lost, too many families torn apart, and too many communities left reeling in the wake of tragedy. I'm standing here today and saying that enough is enough. It's time to show some courage and take a strong stand against gun violence. That's why a re-elected Liberal government will give municipalities the option and the authority to ban or restrict handguns. The mayors assembled here lead cities with a combined population of around 2.5 million people. Couple that with the 3 million more in the city of Toronto, and we're talking about 5.5 million Canadians in this region who could live in handgun-free cities. Imagine how many lives we could change and save by banning or restricting handguns. But a re-elected Liberal government will go even further. We'll also bring in a Canada-wide ban on military-style assault weapons. Because weapons of war designed to kill the largest number of people in the shortest amount of time have no place in our streets. But we also know that curbing gun violence requires more than prohibiting deadly weapons. It also includes cracking down on gun crime and making our communities safer places to live. So, among other things, we'll be investing an additional $250 million over 5 years to directly help our cities fight gang-related violence. This money will go towards community-based strategies and programming, and we will work directly with municipal leaders and community groups to develop local, on-the-ground solutions that reduce and prevent gang violence. And importantly, we'll go to the municipalities directly with this funding, bypassing the need for provincial involvement. Fighting gang-related violence is something that mayors and citizens have been asking for, and we're ready to deliver. A re-elected Liberal government will also expand diversion programs so we can keep at-risk young people out of the criminal justice system, reducing recidivism and offering young Canadians better opportunities for the future. C'est important d'avoir le genre de conversation qu'on a eu aujourd'hui. On peut tous s'entendre sur le fait qu'on doit continuer à faire avancer le Canada et pour ce faire, on doit veiller à la sécurité de nos communautés. Trop de gens ont perdu la vie à cause de la violence armée. On doit absolument agir. Tandis qu'Andrew Scheer promet d'assouplir le contrôle des armes à feu et d'abolir la loi qu'on a adoptée, les libéraux ont un vrai plan pour garder les familles et les communautés en sécurité. Au bout du compte, le choix est clair. Les conservateurs veulent assouplir le contrôle des armes à feu, tandis que les libéraux veulent le resserrer. Contrairement à Andrew Scheer, moi, je veux faire avancer notre pays pour le bien de nos enfants et pour leur avenir. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Good morning, Mr. Trudeau. Katie Simpson, CBC News. Other than lip service, what is the point of allowing municipalities to ban handguns when a neighboring municipality doesn't have to enforce the ban?
One of the things we've heard clearly from the mayors here, and indeed mayors right across the country, is a desire to move forward on restrict and ban handguns within their communities. We recognize, as I said, that the GTA has over 5 million people who could live in municipalities where handguns are flat out banned. This is something that will make a significant difference in moving forward on gun control in this country. And the choice in this election couldn't be clearer. Liberals want to strengthen gun control and Conservatives want to weaken gun control. That is the choice facing Canadians on October 21st.
I'm going to note that you did not specifically answer my question, but I'm wondering if I can get a show of hand from the mayors here. I don't know what the answer is from you guys, but we heard it from the medical professionals who were on the front lines yesterday that a national ban would be something that they would be in favor of because, as one of the doctors pointed out, you could cross from one city to another to pick up a handgun. Could I get a show of hands here from mayors who would like a national ban?
I can tell you I heard clearly from them that many of them want us to bring a national ban, yes.
So all of the, if you take a look behind you, all those people are saying national ban. You heard it from the medical professionals, so why not go that route?
We are taking the strongest step in Canadian history to move forward on tougher gun legislation. We are moving forward on a full-out ban on assault weapons, and we're moving forward to empower municipalities across this country, cities big and small, to ban handguns within their districts, within their municipalities. This is a significant step forward, and the choice in this election is, do we move forward on strengthening gun control with the Liberals, or do we go with the Conservatives who want to weaken gun control? That is the choice Canadians are facing. Okay. Nous reconnaissons qu'il y a bien des gens qui voudraient qu'on aille plus loin, mais on est déjà en train de proposer les mesures les plus serrées sur le contrôle d'armes à feu de notre histoire. On propose de bannir les armes d'assaut et de permettre à nos villes, grandes et petites, de bannir, de limiter les armes de poing. C'est des mesures très fortes, très concrètes, et le choix est clair pour les Canadiens. Est-ce qu'on choisit les libéraux qui allons renforcer et resserrer le contrôle des armes à feu, ou est-ce qu'on choisit les conservateurs qui vont assouplir nos règles de contrôle d'armes à feu?
Brian Lilly, Toronto Sun. The whole area of the GTA has been dealing with gun violence. If you saw the headlines over the weekend, there were a pile more shootings, and there's no area of the GTA that isn't affected by it. But the last several days, you keep talking about a ban on AR-15s. Those are not the firearms that are being used in shootings across the region. We're talking about smuggled or stolen handguns. So why the push to ban a rifle that has no real history of being used as a crime gun when the problem is quite clearly something else?
No real history of the assault weapon that was used in the Polytechnique massacre, the assault weapon that was used in Sainte-Foy, the assault weapons that are used across the border in the United States almost on a weekly basis to kill the largest number of largest number of citizens possible in the shortest amount of time. There is no place for assault weapons in Canada, and we are going to move forward on banning them. We are also going to move forward on allowing our cities to restrict and ban handguns, because the time for thoughts and prayers across this country from politicians is over. We need to strengthen gun control in this country, and the choice is clear. Liberals are going to strengthen gun control. Conservatives want to weaken gun control.
That was an impassioned answer, but like Katie, you didn't really answer because I was talking about Canada, so let me try a different tact. Can you describe to me the difference between the AR-15 that you want to ban and the hundreds of different models of rifles that will still be legal under your plan? I mean, your plan says ban the AR-15. There will still be hundreds of rifles that you will be able to buy legally that operate the same way. So can you explain the difference?
You're actually getting at one of the core differences between the Liberals and the Conservatives' approach on this issue. Not only do Liberals want to strengthen gun control and Conservatives want to weaken them, but we believe that the definitions and the choice around classification of guns should be done by experts, by members of the RCMP. The Conservatives think politicians should be in the business of deciding which model and which gun needs to be banned or not. Well, we know what Stephen Harper did for many years around weakening gun laws because politicians had that decision to make. And we committed in 2015 that we would give back to experts, to the RCMP, the responsibility of classifying in an objective and responsible way guns in this country, because we believe in experts, not in politicians making the decisions around which guns are acceptable and are not. That is why when we move forward on banning assault weapons, we move forward on enabling cities to restrict handguns, we're going to be trusting the experts to make the determinations in terms of which guns are which.
Kathleen Harris, CBC News. I know you've said you want to bring the premiers on board with your plan to allow cities to ban handguns. If they don't agree, what tools, can you clearly articulate what mechanisms you have available to allow cities to impose their own restrictions or bans?
There is not a single politician across this country that does not recognize at any order of government that gun crime is a challenge, that gun crime needs to be responded to, that we need to reduce gun crime and keep our communities safer. We have assembled here today a small sample of the many, many municipal leaders from across the country who are calling to move forward on stronger gun control measures, including the ability to restrict and ban handguns. Now, in much of Canada's history, the provincial governments had the ability to ban, to restrict, to bring in legislation around gun licensing, gun ownership. We are planning to work with the provinces, and there are many provinces across the country who've indicated a tremendous openness to this, to restore to provinces the capacity to work on restricting guns, particularly for municipalities. But we recognize that there are some politicians out there, particularly conservative politicians like Doug Ford, who may not want to strengthen gun control, might want to weaken gun control instead, because that's what Conservatives want to do. And we will, in that case, have the tools to move forward and enable and support municipalities in their desire to ban and limit handgun ownership in their municipalities. But of course, our preferred option is to work with all orders of government to make sure that things work well.
Andrew Scheer has just announced his plan to reduce foreign aid by 25%. Would like to get your take on that, as well as the Liberal plan, because your platform doesn't speak to foreign aid.
Andrew Scheer's climate plan relies almost entirely on action overseas. And now he's proposing to stop supporting countries who are taking action overseas on fighting emissions. So we see right there that his approach does nothing at home for the environment, and now he's telling us does nothing overseas either. We know that fighting climate change is a global problem that needs all of us to step up And that's where the choice comes in this election. Do you want a government that is tackling climate change seriously and being part of a global solution? Or do you want a conservative government that is doing nothing to protect our environment? Le plan sur le climat d'Andrew Scheer consiste à encourager de l'action dans d'autres pays autour du monde. Mais là, on voit qu'il veut limiter la capacité de ces pays-là de prendre action pour contrer les changements climatiques. C'est un autre exemple du fait que Andrew Scheer et les conservateurs ne vont pas agir pour protéger l'environnement et lutter contre les changements climatiques. Et le choix est clair entre un gouvernement libéral qui va continuer d'en faire plus pour lutter contre les changements climatiques ou un parti conservateur qui ne pense pas que c'est un problème, ne va même pas être là pour ce combat.
Mais M. Trudeau, en même temps, comment vous pouvez critiquer le plan d'Andrew Scheer alors que vous ne respectez même pas les demandes qui ont été faites avec l'OCDE en termes d'aide internationale? Vous n'atteignez même pas les cibles qu'on a. C'est quand même un peu audacieux de critiquer votre adversaire alors que vous ne faites même pas le minimum qu'on demande.
Depuis les 4 dernières années, on a fait énormément d'investissements dans l'aide outre-mer, dans l'aide au développement, particulièrement en investissant dans des organismes menés par des femmes ou des organismes qui aident aux femmes les plus vulnérables. Quand on a accueilli les pays du G7 à Charlevoix, on a pu sécuriser des investissements de près de 4 milliards de dollars pour aider les femmes et les filles à avoir de l'éducation dans des situations de conflit, des situations de guerre civile. Nous reconnaissons qu'il y a toujours plus à faire, mais on est un pays qui comprend que de résoudre et d'aider outre-mer, c'est aussi une façon d'aider les Canadiens à réussir dans un monde plus sécur et plus stable.
Demain, c'est le premier débat en français auquel vous avez participé. Premier débat auquel vous avez participé. Demain, Doug Ford, Stephen Harper ne seront pas sur scène. Votre adversaire, c'est qui?
Je ne pense pas à des élections en tant qu'adversaire. Je pense à des élections par rapport aux électeurs, par rapport aux Canadiens. Et les Canadiens vont regarder ces débats qui s'en viennent dans les 2 prochaines semaines. Ils vont faire un choix par rapport à quelle direction ils veulent prendre pour le pays. Andrew Scheer nous propose un retour à l'ère Harper. Ces politiques sont calquées sur l'approche Harper que les Canadiens ont rejetée en 2015. Et on voit très clairement, avec les actions de Doug Ford, ce qu'attend un gouvernement conservateur à Ottawa de faire. Alors, absolument, je vais parler de ce choix important que les Canadiens vont à faire le 21 octobre. Est-ce qu'on continue d'avancer avec le Parti libéral ou est-ce qu'on retourne en arrière aux années Harper?
Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. The policies you're talking about this week on a municipal handgun ban require the buy-in, the cooperation from someone like Premier Doug Ford, and yet you've spent this entire campaign so far bashing him. How can you expect him to work with you if you are reelected?
I think the reality is I am a parent with kids in the Ontario public system, and I really wish that Doug Ford would spend as much time focusing on my kids' school as he does focusing on supporting his federal party. Canadians have a clear choice. Conservative politicians that hide their promises, don't deliver platforms that are costed, and then deliver cuts to Canadians, to the services they need, while giving tax breaks to the wealthy. The choice in Canada on October 21st is clear. Do we go back to cuts and austerity and tax breaks for the wealthiest with conservative politicians, or do we keep moving forward with liberal politicians?
Mr. Ford was elected with a decisive majority government. Do you think voters appreciate you using their premier as a punching bag every day because you disagree with him? The same voters voted for you.
I've heard from people across Ontario, indeed, right across the country, from the Rocky Mountains to the Bay of Fundy, that people can't believe that they have elected premiers that are nowhere on the great defining fight of our time, the fight against climate change. They are frustrated at cuts to education, cuts to health care, cuts to services that Canadians need, while people like Doug Ford and others give tax breaks to the wealthiest. And now Andrew Scheer is asking people right across the country to double down on Conservative leadership, to double down on the kinds of cuts that Doug Ford is bringing in. He's even got the same approach on platform. He's not releasing his costed platform. You know who did that? Doug Ford did that. Why didn't he release a costed platform? Because he didn't want people to know that all he was going to do was cut services for people and cut taxes for the wealthiest. Well, I know people in Ontario, and I know people right across the country understand the choice they have to make. Do we keep moving in the direction of cuts and tax breaks for the wealthy and go back to that Conservative approach that failed during the Harper years? Or do we choose to move forward on stronger gun control, on more fighting against climate change and for the environment, and on investing in the middle class and people working hard to join it instead of the tax breaks for the wealthiest? That's the choice people are facing. And I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation.
Mr. Trudeau, good morning. Omar Sechedina from CTV National News. Your bar on gun control seems to be what the Conservatives have done. You had trauma surgeons yesterday tell you directly that they want a national ban. You've had virtually every mayor, if not every mayor behind you, raise their hand calling for a national ban. You've got the parents of victims who are calling for a national ban. When people are dying, where there have been more than 300 shootings so far this year, just in Toronto alone, is it enough to tell parents especially that we're going to do a little bit better than what the Conservatives have done? Why will you not get a national ban? Why will you not commit to one?
We are committed to moving forward on the strongest gun control measures in Canadian history. We know that the time for thoughts and prayers is over, that we need concrete action to ban assault weapons right across this country and to enable our cities to ban handguns as well. This is a significant, meaningful, and historic step in the right direction. And the choice facing Canadians right now is, do we strengthen gun control by re-electing a Liberal government, or do we weaken gun control by voting for the Conservatives? That is the choice that Canadians are facing on October 21st.
That still doesn't answer my question why I won't commit to a national ban on handguns, but I want to move on to talk a little bit about foreign aid. As you know, the UN target is 0.7% of gross national income, and under you, that target, Canada's target, has been 0.28, especially at a time when Canada is vying for a seat at the Security Council. I'm just wondering if you will, if re-elected, commit to reaching that 0.7 target by the end of a second mandate.
We are continuing to invest in foreign aid because we know that helping people around the world, particularly vulnerable women and girls, is a meaningful way of promoting prosperity and indeed security and stability that impacts Canadians as well. We know Canadians have a role to play on the world stage, and we will play it in a responsible way of looking at how we can best help. We know, for example, that on climate change, investing in emissions reduction approaches in countries around the world is going to be a really important part of fighting climate change. Indeed, that's pretty much the only concrete thing that Andrew Scheer has talked about in his environmental platform. But now he's announcing he's actually going to even do less in enabling countries around the world to fight climate change. And you really, truly see that the Conservative Party is not serious about fighting climate change either at home or overseas, and doesn't believe in building a stronger economy and a protected environment for the future. Again, the choice is clear for Canadians. Do we keep moving forward on ways that are going to invest in our future and create better prosperity while fighting climate change? Or do we go backwards? I choose to go forwards.
So you're not committing to that then, 0.7?
Abigail Beeman, Global News. Last night, Calgary City Council passed a motion opposing Bill 21. Other municipalities have done the same, and Mayor Nenshi has been critical of federal leaders for not taking a stronger stance. What is your reaction to more municipalities speaking out against Bill 21?
I've been very clear that my job is to stand up for Canadians' rights, and I will always do so. I recognize that Bill 21 permits discrimination against Canadians, and I disagree with it deeply and have been clear on that. But it's a discussion that is ongoing in Quebec, and Quebecers are in court right now, defending our Charter of Rights and Freedoms exactly the way the Charter lays out the capacity for people to defend their rights. We are watching carefully this conversation and this court process unfold in Quebec, and we will make determinations about whether to intervene at an appropriate time.
Chris Reynolds, Canadian Press. Has Canada been asked to intervene or provide intelligence for Donald Trump's political goals?
No, never.
You wouldn't have asked?
No, we have not, and I would not.
My final question is that with NAFTA, the fate of it being so uncertain, as well as supply management, especially with dairy remaining such a sore point south of the border, how can you commit to leaving dairy supply management off the table in any future trade talks?
We know that Canada is now the only G7 nation with a free trade deal with every other G7 nation. We were able to secure a renewed NAFTA at a time of tremendous unpredictability and protectionism from the United States. And the way we were able to do that is Canadians pulled together right across the country of different backgrounds, of different political parties. People spoke with one voice about how important it was to stand up for Canadians and to create new opportunities for workers, for companies, for the future. We were able to secure a NAFTA that protected supply management, that creates jobs for workers, and actually we were able to lift the punitive tariffs that the Americans brought in on steel and aluminum workers. And we were able to do that because we stood strong. The only people out there who were recommending we capitulate were a small number of federal conservatives who thought that any deal was better than no deal and we needed to give in to Donald Trump's demands. Well, I disagreed with Stephen Harper and with Andrew Scheer. We stood up and we got the right deal for Canadians, and now jobs are secured right across the country, including in our agricultural industries, and we can look towards the future with continued confidence.
Last question.
Daniel Calabretta from the Pointer in Mississauga and Brampton. Now, in regards to the gang-related funding, $50 million over 5 years, what will the federal government do to ensure the money is distributed to municipalities based on need, and will it go directly to them?
We recognize that a number of the investments that we made through the province to get to municipalities in order to help deliver measures to fight gun violence didn't make it. The province dragged their heels on moving forward, on delivering to these mayors the money they need to create programs and fight gun crime in their municipalities. That's why we took the initiative of committing $250 million over the coming years, money that will go directly to municipalities that need it. Because unfortunately, we've seen Doug Ford not take seriously the need to invest in fighting gun crime. We've seen conservative politicians wanting to weaken gun control when we want to strengthen it. And we know that municipal leaders across the province and indeed across the country deserve a partner who will invest in them and give them the tools to keep fighting against gun crime. The choice in this election is clear. Do we strengthen gun control by continuing to move forward in partnership with municipalities, or do we go backwards to the Harper years and to doing less for municipalities in fighting gun crime?
I guess just one quick follow-up. What will your government do to make sure the Ontario government delivers it swiftly and fairly without political considerations? I've heard Mayor's voice their displeasure.
Well, that is what we have seen, that unfortunately the politics at Queen's Park and Doug Ford's approach has not delivered the money that municipalities needed to keep their citizens safe, which is why our commitment of $250 million for municipalities will go directly to those municipalities. We believe in working with our partners to keep Canadians safe, while Conservatives want to weaken gun control. The choice is clear on October 21st. I'm looking forward to continuing to talk with Canadians about it. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.